Well, on Fanalysis, we use the analytics popularized by fantasy football and combine it with the betting trends to find you the sharp money for Week 12. So let's find the top plays for Week 12 by bringing in a sports handicapper known on Twitter as Old Man Who Bets, and now man with a mustache, Geoff Sheasby. It is Movember, so you're just celebrating right now.
It's Movember. We're raising money for men's health, trying to keep men alive.
Okay, very good. Well, let's see if we can keep these hot bets that you've been running recently alive as well. The Dolphins, once again, on the wrong side of a double-digit spread. They're getting 10.5 in Cleveland. The public has bet this down from 12.5, while the Browns have won 2 straight. Are you really a believer in their momentum?
Yeah, I think it's either being a believer in Baker and co here or maybe just a non-believer in the Dolphins. I think after these 2 wins from the Dolphins over the Jets and then the Colts, I think they're still a little overinflated here. I think people are looking at the inconsistency of the Browns, and for good reason. But when we look at ATS spreads trends here, the Browns are 3-6-1. I think that should regress northward a little bit. The Dolphins are right where we should be at 5-5, but when we're looking at away underdogs, they're 3-1. I think that should regress a little bit southern. So we're getting a nice merge there. And then when we look at the movement, to your point, where the sharps are at, only 38% of bets, but that line is moving up 1.5 points already. Makes me think that the Browns are the side.
And would that, if that line moves any more, does that change your perspective on it? Because it's right at that magic number of 10.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it goes up a little bit more, obviously a sign of strength. When we're looking at efficiency numbers here, the Dolphins, offensively and defensively, are 29th, 31st, 32nd, and 32nd, I believe it is, in terms of pass offense, rush offense, and then defense. So they're quite literally the bottom of the barrel across the board. I think that they are quite literally that bad. One thing that is concerning a little bit is looking at Browns and their motivation factor. The only games that they've covered handily have been against conference in conference opponents. They've won those with an average, I think it was 16 points in that delta. The rest of their games, they're negative 3.5 against the spread. So hoping they get that motivation here, but ultimately banking on, Fitzmagic having no magic, being depleted, being that bad, and the Dolphins do need to lose. They're putting themselves in a tough spot here to get the first pick, with a bunch of other teams also tanking. And maybe Tua, maybe not.
Yeah, and maybe leapfrogging them for that #1 pick right now.
Yeah.
All right, the Niners on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. Niners giving 3 at home to the Packers. This is a battle of 2 teams that are vying for the top seed in the NFC, and the Packers have clearly played a tougher schedule so far this year. So does that influence you one way or another with just a 3-point spread?
Yeah, the strength of schedule is super interesting here. The Packers have beaten some good teams, the Chiefs, Vikings, also some pretty decent wins against the Lions, the Broncos, the Bears. And the Niners, on the other hand, they've got one of the easiest strength of schedules out there. I think only the Patriots so far have had an easier one. So are they that good? Is their defense that dominant? I think yes. When we look at the opponents they have played, the good teams that they've played, they've beat. The bad teams that they were supposed to beat handedly, more or less, they did beat relatively handedly. So, of course, the Niners had that OT loss versus the Seahawks, but the Seahawks are also a great 8-2, 4-1 against the spread on the road. So when we're looking at regressions here against the spread trends, we got Green Bay at 7-3. I think that comes down a little bit. The other hand, we've got, especially them 3-1 on the road. I think they finally do cool off against this defense. In terms of yards per play, points per play, the Niners are leading both offensively and defensively on that stat. In terms of offensive efficiency stats from Football Outsiders, we are seeing a boost from the Packers offense. I believe they're 4th in both passing and rushing.
I think, that's one of the things that really surprised me most about the Packers is that they're actually averaging nearly a touchdown a game better on the road than they are at home. But listen, everything is due for a regression to the mean, and that could be, they could be due for that in this week. Yeah,
I think the youth in the secondary, obviously when we add Emmanuel Sanders now on the Niners side of things, they have a little bit more of a poignant offensive attack through the air. 3-headed monster with Breida, with Mostert, with Coleman rushing. I think a couple of them are banged up, but nonetheless, I think the biggest delta there is going to be the rush offense from the Niners versus the rush defense of the Packers. And at 3 points, kind of a coin flip. Should be a great game. Sunday Night Football.
I know,
about time we've gotten a good, consistently good game in prime time.
Weekend up to make
exactly. Get the Sunday scaries out of there with a great football game. Should be a tight one, but I'm going to go with fading the public here. 45% of the bets and taking the Niners.
All right, fade the public. That's always a good play. The Patriots giving 6.5 at home against the Cowboys. Seems like the Patriots are a top play for the pro bettors every week. Week 12 seems to be no different. Are the Patriots a recession-proof squad?
It certainly seems like it. I'm not going to bet the Patriots, I think, for the rest of the season.
You're not going
to bet the Patriots.
Okay,
and something I should have been doing for years. Tom Brady is an absolutely insane stat. I think he covers at a 59% clip over the course of his career. I've been riding them religiously this year, public or not public, you name it. They've got 19 straight winning seasons. The second best, I think, is 7. That includes this season. Just they are outrageously good. Something that's never done. So they're the closest thing to a lock or a sure thing. Everybody's always asking, who's your lock? Who's your lock? Last 10 years, it's been the Patriots. So, they're 7-3 against the spread this year. They're 4-1 in their last 5. They're 3-1 at home. Obviously, they've got a great team, but under a touchdown favorite. Anything under 7, I'm feeling pretty good about taking the Patriots in kind of a surefire, almost blindly riding at this point because they have been that good for that long, even with a depleted wide receiver core. So
that's the thing. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to. They always seem to find a way to either put points on the board, but this year, clearly differently, the defense is putting them in such a great position that they have short fields to score as opposed to trying to drive it down on those 80-yard drives.
Yeah, their secondary is best in the league, if not, top 3. Cooper, obviously a great receiver for the Cowboys, but he'll probably be seeing Gilmore, and that's not a matchup you want to be as a receiver. So.
And on top of that, good. There was another stat I saw on Pro Football Outsiders, and it said that, or footballoutsiders.com, I should say, the outside receivers against the Patriots defense have the lowest catch percentage, and quarterbacks have the lowest passer rating against the outside or for the outside receivers against any team in the NFL. And it just it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but it just, I guess, reaffirms that the only way to beat the Patriots is by going inside and by running the ball. And you've got to have that multifaceted offensive attack to beat them.
And that's a great point. I think probably the only real cause for concern here is when we look at when the Pats have let down this year, it's been Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Great interior run game and a mobile quarterback. Here we've got Zeke and a great offensive line and a relatively mobile quarterback in Dak, even though he's been passing a lot more than running this year. Hopefully the Pats have learned a lesson from that, shellacking they took a couple weeks back. But
late money always seems to come in on the Cowboys. Will you consider waiting until Sunday to place this bet?
At 6.5, I like it. Under 7, so I'm good to take it now. Certainly, if it moves further for the Patriots again, that macro trend of 59%, one of the best quarterbacks against the spread literally ever. I gotta feel good about it pretty much against whoever they're playing.
All right, so we rarely pull the whole look-ahead lines, but because it's Thursday, because there's so many Thanksgiving Day games, we wanted to kind of throw out some of these look-ahead lines for you to see if there's anything that interests you. Thanksgiving Day games, the Bears getting 1.5 in Detroit, Cowboys 7.5-point home favorites to Buffalo, and the Falcons 5.5-point home dogs to New Orleans. Any of those you might want to jump on?
Yeah, we've got some interesting games here. Obviously, with the Lions and the the Lions and the Bears, that's going to be interesting just because starting quarterbacks are banged up. Kind of a coin flip. I don't think we can have any action on that until we see if Stafford's going to be playing.
Right.
The Falcons and the Saints, super interesting as well. With the Falcons all of a sudden playing good football, beating the Saints, I think it was 26-9 a couple weeks ago. So a little bit of a revenge spot. Would certainly lean towards the Saints here. I think the game that I like the most out of the 3 of these is going to be the Cowboys and the Bills. I think the Bills are overrated based on who they've played. If you look at their schedule, there's not many games that you can circle as good wins. I think the only good loss they had was at home versus the Pats at 16-10. But nonetheless, this is a team I think that is very polarizing home and away, especially with their defense. It's very challenging to play in Buffalo, cold, hostile, not a place you want to go. But here they're going to be at Dallas. And I think this line is really going to depend on how Dallas fares this week against New England. If Dallas pulls an upset, I would expect this line to move obviously towards Dallas. If it's a good game, it should probably stay around 7.5. If they get blown out, it'll probably move in the Buffalo's favor. But I'm looking at Dallas. Would prefer it at 7, even 6.5. But even at 7.5, that'd be where I'd be putting my money.
Sometimes the look-ahead lines are something to keep a close eye on. All right, our job is to identify the sharp angles this week, and that is a look at the top plays of Week 12. Make sure you keep up with the latest line movement on sportsline.com. For Geoff Sheasby, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.
The sights, the anticipation, the larger-than-life balloons. We're live as the